Prototype is an insanely edgy game. I mean, extremely edgy. Looping anime profile picture and grayscale with a rain filter level of edgy. But look, what other game on the market allows you to consume an old lady off the street, turn into her, run on top of building rooftops before gliding into a military base, sprout huge fuck-off spikes out of the ground, killing most people within seconds, then evolving a biological suit of armor and whip to kill attack helicopters, then turn into that old lady again to pick up a car, run on top of a skyscraper and throw it into the ocean. Although I phrased this entire sequence of events as a rhetorical question, if there's any game out there outside of the Prototype franchise that allows me to do this, please let me know. Anyways, what if you tried to beat this game without most of these godly powers? Can you beat Prototype without offensive or defensive powers? Now firstly, I don't usually like explaining a challenge in depth, but this is a game where just picking up a fucking car and running on top of a skyscraper is not considered a power. You can do that from the very first mission of the game, so I sort of need to explain what's allowed and what isn't. All movement, survival, vehicle, weaponry, consume, and most combat upgrades are available. What isn't are any defensive powers, any offensive powers, any devastator upgrades, and with one exception, no sensory powers. The reason this is a challenge is because as fucking cool as it is to dropkick somebody so hard that you ride their corpse like a fucking skateboard, this is a game in which you don't really want to go hand to hand too often. There is very few cases in which you don't want to actively abuse your powers. So I'm basically taking the entire appeal of the game and just throwing it into the wind. Anyways, without further ado, let's boot up the game and get introduced to our DeviantArt OC, Alex Mercer. Anyways, check out my claws. Hell yeah. The problem is, we can't really use them, but we can't really get rid of them either, from what I could tell. So we're going to have to do something really stupid. Run on top of a building, get high enough that my landing does AoE damage, rinse and repeat over and over again. Afterwards, tanks. Oh no. Anyways, I started blasting, because you can use guns, and most of the time they're alright. Again, I'd rather just have claws for hands. Anyways, there's hunters now, which are really not fun. But in this certain scenario, we get to see the derpiness of somehow handling a rocket launcher with a sword. Savor it while you can, because after this tutorial, you're never going to see my hands be anything other than a hand. After killing all the hunters, we have to consume the commander. And I know I briefly went over it already, but consuming is entirely allowed. For those people out there who never played this game and had parents that loved them, consuming is basically your main way of getting health in this game. It's also your main way of getting out of bad scenarios because sure, there's only one person on the island who can run at approximately 150 miles per hour, but what if that person was a basketball player, or a grandma, or a businessman? Do you know how many people like to complain about the GTA or Saints Row police, where if you hide behind a trash can for long enough they'll just ignore you and never go after you again? This game is like that, but the more you think about it, the more you realize it's kind of worse in every way, but at least you get upgrades. And those kind of make sense because you're basically consuming their memories. There's a helicopter pilot? Eat 'em. Ride a helicopter now. Anyways, after that, the tutorial is complete and we have a flashback to where this all began. Finding our main DeviantArt OC stuck in a lab, getting injected with a man-made virus called the Blacklight virus. And hey YouTube, this one makes zombies and lets me turn my hand into a big fuck-off sword. It isn't the one that's currently ravaging the world right now. Please don't nuke my fucking channel. Anyways, we gotta escape from the lab and run the fuck away from an attack helicopter. But never fear, Alex Mercer is a strategic genius, and he knows the natural predator to helicopters. Just throw a car at him. I mean, it's really just that easy. How's the US a global power even? Anyways, we can run up walls now, because of course we can. And this time we get to kill 2 attack helicopters. But instead of cars, we now have blocks. I really don't know what these are, it's probably really obvious, but as somebody who lives in a small midwestern town where the tallest buildings are maybe like 6 stories at most, I honestly have no fucking clue. Also, we can eat people now. That's fun. We also figure out the disguise mechanic and have to get into Dana's apartment. And honestly, I don't even remember 3/4 of the characters in this game because they might as well be nameless. Who the fuck cares about my close friends, my sister, my family, or my ex-girlfriend when I can turn my hand into a fucking sword? At that point, being friends with anybody would be incredibly easy. If you dare do anything slightly out of line, I will fucking consume you, go into your parents' house, kill them all, and infest your dog. Now, Jennifer, please do try and tell me again who won at laser tag, cause I don't think it was you. Honestly, maybe North Korea's onto something. Anyways, we gotta eat another person. Pretty standard Saturday afternoon. And now we gotta find Elizabeth Green, and I remember this bastard's name for reasons we'll get into later. If you ever played this game, you know exactly what I mean. Anyways, here's Hunters. They're hyped up as this big enemy, and this is where we get our claw powers. But of course, we don't have those claw powers, so what it actually is time for is to run in circles for all eternity and throw boxes at them. It's not exactly the most courageous or badass strategy, but it works. After enough running and throwing, we have to kill the fuel tanks because we might as well cross off global warming on our to-do list, and now we can hijack armored vehicles. Which luckily these are pretty okay. This is something that'll continuously ramp up over time, but for now it's just APCs. And the driving mechanics in this game are... well, they're not terrible, but they're sure as hell not fantastic either. And it's not because of the driving controls, they're alright. It's because the military are fucking jackasses. So let me go ahead and give you a moral debate. I accidentally ran over 2 soldiers in a tank. Both deaths were entirely preventable if I just slowed down and showed basic precaution. That made my big glowy suspicion bar roughly get to about 70%. Then I ran into a wall. Not forcefully, by the way. I'm pretty sure if this tank in a hypothetical scenario ran into my house right now at the exact same speed in the exact same conditions, I think the most damage it'd be able to pull off is maybe make a medium-sized hole in our wall. Now the military, after not really giving a care in the world that I just ran over 2 soldiers, we're fucking pissed. Yeah, red alert, instantly, for barely nudging into a wall. This dude's basically Hitler 2.0, get his ass. Honestly, I miss this game. Oh yeah, we're supposed to talk about the mission. We gotta kill 3 hives and return back with our APC intact, which is a lot easier said than done. The hives are easy to handle, there's not really all too much the Zerg can do against my tank, but the second part was extremely obnoxious because to beat the mission we have to get to this waypoint. And do you know what's in the way of that waypoint? A military base. But not just any military base, they're not even hostile against us. The problem is, walls. They have them. They don't like me. Whoopsie doopsie. Anyways, after this, we rescued our ex-girlfriend, and I'm sure the possibilities of her betraying us and having to consume her are at least 95%. And then we have to cause property damage against water towers. But oh, don't you worry, these aren't just any regular old water towers. These are infested water towers, which honestly I've never considered the possibility of being raised in a womb that is a water tower. Sounds kinda fun though. Anyways, we got our genes and we can now move on to killing a military base for reasons I forgot. And then it's kill 10 detectors, and while scripting this out I had a revelation. I finally realized a prototype formula. Mr. Krabs is no match for me now. Okay, so basically 3/4 of every mission is just, hey boss, we need a way to put this enemy or mechanic into the game seamlessly. Oh yeah, so like the detectors, the UAVs, the super soldiers, the hunters. Yeah, but isn't it kind of unfair to just start randomly spawning them in after a certain threshold? Bobby, you're probably right. Make some jackass reason why the player needs to kill them for the plot to move forward. Aye aye, you got it boss. It's like a World of Warcraft questline where it's like, oh no, the Queen of the Universe is going to kill us. But quickly, we need 10 bear asses. Go get 'em, adventurer. And that's most of the story. But again, I can run up walls and I can turn my hand into a whip and bring down helicopters. So who cares? Anyways, after that, we have our first boss battle. And let me be blunt, I think out of any game out there I've ever played, Prototype has some of the worst bosses I've ever seen. Do you know what doesn't exactly go too well with having a god power fantasy game where you can evolve your hands into swords? Going AFK behind a building and eating people until you're full health to get off like 4 hits. Does that sound fun? Because fuck you. Also, make sure to remember, we're doing this without powers, so everything is way more tanky than it has any right to be. Granted, the first boss battle wasn't terrible. It took roughly 10 minutes to kill, and not even because of retries or anything, he's just that tanky. But I assure you, this is only the beginning, and the rat bastard did it. He took away all of my defensive and offensive powers. All 0 of them I've been using. Normally, this is an extremely annoying and hated part of the game, but for me, it's literally just a cutscene. Anyways, we have to have the player find out that they can hijack tanks now. So we gotta have a mission to show the player that they can hijack tanks now. And after enough tank hijacking and driving and tank, we have to protect Dr. Friend from being in a bad reenactment of I Am Legend. And I forgot to mention we have a Dr. Friend because I was too busy hijacking tanks and running over civilians. After Dr. Guy survives, we have to kill off the rest of the infested. And goddammit, they unlock spine crawlers. But don't you worry, Dr. Guy is going to do the shittiest run I think I've seen in any video game, and we're back to our tank. And we can move on to the next mission. To try and talk about the story again, from what I've gathered, we have to kill these viral detectors because the game needs to give us a reason to figure out that we can hijack helicopters now. And we have to fly around until the big signal strength bar is full, meaning we found a really strong hunter that we can inject and then follow around until it's fully vaccinated, I guess? Hey YouTube, Blacklight, don't nuke my channel please. And guess what, we got our powers back, including this cool armor and cool sword. This is completely worthless, but at least I got out of this mission knowing one thing. I can now cosplay as my favorite monkey from Bloons TD6. Those fucking balloons went too far this time. Kill them all. Oh, wait, no. Our sister just got yonked by the hunter. Oh, no. We gotta follow him. Can't have our sister die or whatever. You like that water, bug? Because you're ruining this entire recording. And by ruining, I mean make infinitely better. I love you, buddy. Anyways, despite the fact I can basically eat attack helicopters for breakfast, all it took was 2 of them to end the mission, and have this beautiful dramatic close-up of my character, with all the drama from a 2009 Xbox 360 game. It's good. What can I say? After this completely stunning, beautiful, and encapsulating shot, we have to make a hunter really mad so that it follows us into a military base, in which it's time for Alex Throws Boxes Simulator 2009-2. There is also a tank mission, I guess, as well as the only mission in the game that, as far as I'm aware, requires you to use a vision power. Gotta eat the smaller dudes to find out where the big dude is, and then it's time for the second boss of the game, the Supreme Hunter. This boss wasn't really hard because he was hard, it was just a classic act of the devs going, how much fucking shit can we throw into one room? I don't know, but we got him, we got tanks, we got marines, we got infected, we got hunters, we got spine crawlers. Really, if there was a way to get fucking helicopters in here, I'm sure the devs would throw those in too. But it doesn't really matter. After throwing 17 trillion boxes at him while disguised as grandma, we did it. But did we really though? The answer is no. He's the final boss of the game. There's your spoilers for an obscure Xbox 360 game from 2009. Feel free to dislike the video and shoot me. Wait, hold on. Boss, we have to find a way to get blood toxin to the plot somehow. How do we do that? Oh, like we usually do? Okay. Well, we have to have an entire mission where we have to find out that breathing red stuff is bad, and then an escort mission where we have to protect a pumper until it gets to Times Square, and then it's time for All In. Well, actually, I guess this did come out a year earlier, and it was developed by Activision. Well, anyways, we have to protect the pumper from 4 Avenue so our pumper can make the ground so toxic that not even League of Legends can compare, and Elizabeth stops being a bitch and comes out of hiding so we can kill her. And this, boys, it's time for Davey's Gamer Awards, featuring the most boring boss in video game history. Now let me go ahead and ask, When you play a game like this, does the idea of a fun time include fighting a boss fight with more health bars than I have sanity? Does that include having basically unavoidable attacks that, when they hit you, basically just force you to find a random alleyway to eat a bunch of people just to get hurt again? Does the idea of having one-shot attacks sound fun? Does the idea of having a boss where one of the most optimal strategies is to just hijack helicopters repeatedly for 50 minutes sound fun to you? Because it isn't. Granted, you're usually supposed to use your devastators here to make sure the phases don't last too long, but we don't really have that luxury, and instead have to do this shitty song and dance for 50 minutes. Have I mentioned that this boss fight took me 50 minutes? Because it did. And it only has one checkpoint. After the very first phase. 10 minutes in. Fuck me. It's not very fun. There's no epic gamer dubstep montage to be had here. It's just general depression. But after 15 billion years of playing this fucking minigame, I beat her. I was a basketball player in the cutscene, and we have another mission where we have to destroy some blood tox filters. Woohoo. Then we gotta kill some helicopters, then we have to consume Haggart. Despite having one of the worst names possible, he also has a big tank. Big tank that can literally one-shot me and make me go big owie. And he also has a bunch of smaller tanks around him that I have to deal with, so really it was just a trip, and I found the optimal strategy was to just kill some rocket launcher dudes around the area, shoot the tanks over and over again, rinse and repeat, consume him, and it's time for the final boss of the game, and although not mother levels of cringe, was still extremely annoying. This boss fight has one main gimmick. You have to beat him in 6 minutes. If you don't, New York gets nuked in one of the most dramatic game over scenes I have ever seen. And the problem with a timed boss in a challenge like this is, I don't do a lot of damage. At all. This right here is pretty much the sole reason I'm not doing this challenge on the hardest difficulty, because honestly, I don't even know if it's possible without devastators. Even on normal, it's a pretty difficult endeavor. Look at this. This gave me depression. But eventually, after a few attempts, I found out the two best ways to damage him. Throwing helicopters and bombs, or machine gun / rocket launcher. Even knowing this, it still took me a few tries. But eventually, with only 41 seconds left on the timer, I finally killed him. And in the last seconds of the game, Alex decided to bust out his sword to pretty much just mock me for doing this challenge at all. And I beat Prototype without using offensive or defensive powers. As always, thank you to my patrons who fund my videos, because I would not be surprised if Google nuked this video into orbit. Anyways, check this out. With the power of their disposable income, I'm going to turn their names from white to purple. Woo, so cool. Anyways, as always, this is what too much DeviantArt does to the body. Don't go there.